water all over me. So I was like, when you like nod off at, when you're like sitting up and you fall asleep. So I'm sitting next to Sue and all of a sudden there's water all over me. And I realized I need to go home. I need to go to bed. This is ridiculous. So, so a lot of you guys were there on Sunday, but I made sure that you went to the other classes because I thought I could just share, when we teach twice a week. Hello. So I'll just start with what we spoke about, and then we'll get into our topic, which is everyday holiness. Okay, so there are 3 relationships that we are always working on. And we've spoken about this. So what are those 3 relationships? It's almost like we are all. Women are jugglers. So we're juggling 3 main relationships at once all the time, if we are being our highest selves. So what are those 3 relationships?
God.
Work, family, God, self. Good. What else? Okay, husband. 3. Children. Okay, so we're gonna just put them into 3 categories. The 3 categories can very. Don't forget L'chaim Center. That's so it's a great way to remember it is your inner, your outer, and your upper. Okay, your inner relationship, which is really, really where it starts. Because if you are not feeling good, or if you cannot love yourself or accept yourself, then chances are you cannot make space and love and accept other people in your life. Mm-hmm. And if you're not also connecting on a higher level, if everything is just plain, mundane, physical experience, then we're actually not accessing so much more than we can be. So these are 3 relationships that we constantly need to be juggling: your inner world, your outer world, and your upper world. So I'm going to give you guys an example, okay? Because hi Judy, haven't seen you yet. Are you going to give me a hug afterwards? Okay, good. Okay, so I'll give you an example because it actually gets very tricky to keep all 3 of these in front of you all the time. It might have been very easy when we were in Israel to connect. We were connecting to ourselves, to our soul. We were connecting to each other. We were, and we all got along so well. And there was this spiritual element. We were talking about HP, hashgacha pratit, every step of the way, right? So we were doing it. We were rocking it. But then enter real life, okay? And I know we've already blown it so many times we can't even count. Baruch Hashem, that's right. So I'll give you an example that I always think about is Friday when it's coming towards Shabbat, and I'm trying my best to keep things calm, to enter Shabbat, to light my candles with the music in the background, the angels, my kids all lined up, so beautifully dressed. And that's not how it actually happens. There's usually chaos and get out of the shower, and and the food is burning and whatever. There's just life that happens. So how on earth are you supposed to keep those 3 relationships in sync? Because you really want to. You want to take care of yourself. You want to show up for Shabbat feeling full, feeling like, maybe even a little lipstick or something, like you've taken 5 minutes for yourself. You want to make sure that your relationships around you are not being burnt and people are not fighting and screaming and you're mad at everyone. And you also want to have this connection to God. So how is it possible? Is it possible? That's the question. So it's very hard. It's actually very, very hard to always have these relationships going. Which one do you think is the easiest relationship to keep in front of us, like doing well at? There's no right or wrong answer. Which one is the easiest relationship for you?
I think it's with God.
Huh, you think God. I think that's the hardest one. Okay, but Regina's very holy. So, okay. No, I think it's the hardest. Some people are so connected that that's all that we see. And when we go into the synagogue, right, I think I've mentioned this before, on the ark, there's usually one of a few statements. One says, God is in front of me all the time. It's a reminder, right? It's like to tell us, don't forget, guys. And the other one is, and then Dal lifnei mi ata omed means know before whom you stand. Because most people have the hardest time realizing and recognizing and knowing that God is really there and he's calling the shots. We forget that because it's not always so clear. But I love that that's your go-to.
That depends, right? Because I'm retired, my kids are grown.
Right.
So I don't have anyone to scream at to get out of the shower.
Right. So you could just
I can do the
Zen. Love it. Okay, what's your okay? Is everyone thinking of that person?
Or the one.
The relationship that she was referring to was your father. So not everyone has that relationship with your father. Not everyone has that at all. But I think what she was trying to allude to was that our parent relationship is there to teach us about our parent in heaven, like Father in heaven. Okay, that's what she was alluding to. Mama bear.
Right? How dare you, right?
Mm.
And that is your relationship.
Right. Okay, I love it. Good. So does anyone so that's beautiful. So higher power is what you would go to. That's like very easy to connect to, easier than the other relationships. Does anyone struggle with self-esteem? Yeah, right. Does everyone have a hard time here? I mean, I hope I'm not alone, that sometimes we look in the mirror and we don't love what we see. We don't love what we feel. Maybe we even feel like a hypocrite, right? And when people love you, it's hard to accept their love because you are not a complete vessel at every time in your life, right? If you're not whole, it's very hard to make space for other people.
But we don't always love our actions.
Right, I guess, and we are not that reaction or our bad day, right? We're so much more than that. So if we could just take a step back, we know that God loves us unconditionally and that our soul is completely pure at all times, untainted. Nothing we do or say or experience or none of it, we're not our mistakes. We're not our lowest selves. We are pure godliness. So if God tells us, and literally we say this every morning in our prayers, we're going to open our Siddurim that we got on the trip at some point, and I'll teach you some of the prayers. One of the most beautiful prayers is when God basically says, I believe in you. I created you. I believe in you. I fashioned you. And every night I take your soul from you, I cleanse it, and I blow it lovingly back into you. So how on earth can we be so full of ourselves to say, God, you made a mistake, right? I'm so sorry. I'm not that good. I'm not deserving of that. I'm not worthy. God is saying, I'm giving you another chance. The fact that you wake up in the morning means that God believes that you deserve another day and you are going to make a difference in the world. So if we really internalized all these things, we would realize that there is absolutely no space within Judaism for low self-esteem. So that's, I think, the loving yourself is that has to come first. It's often the hardest. A lot of people feel that the relationship with God is the hardest, and people have complicated relationships with God and complicated relationships with prayer and turning to God, and there's anger and there's all that stuff, which is part of it, which is part of a relationship. Because if you think about it, husband and wife that are not talking to each other, their relationship is basically over. But if husband and wife are in communication, and sometimes that communication could be like, not so smooth, there's still hope for that couple. So that's what it's like with our relationship with God. We could be mad at God. We could fight with God. We could tell God all of our feelings with no filter. And that's okay, because that means we're in a relationship. And then the other relationship, everyone else in our life, the people that are closest to our inner circle, those are often the hardest relationships to manage, right? The ones that we're supposed to love so much are often the hardest, right? It's really easy to be so kind to the sales clerk at Target and tell her how cute she looks, but we don't always feel like giving so many compliments to the people that are nearest and dearest to us. So that's also a complicated one, but this is basically our job as evolving human beings that are growth oriented to balance these three relationships all the time: inner, outer, and upper. Okay, just total, it's like doing I can't even do it, but it's like tapping and doing this at the same time. I can't do it, but that's basically what it's like. Oh, don't remove Angie. Okay, so questions about that? I see that, yeah.
When I was asking my father, first question,
I love that.
Awesome.
That's so beautiful. And that's a beautiful thing for a child to grow up with, that you're never alone, right? God has your back, he's with you, he loves you. So that's a beautiful way of instilling that relationship is constantly there.
right, and I think he also said,
Yeah.
And
That's so beautiful. You're very lucky that you were raised like that. Anyone else before we carry on with our?
just to add, I don't want to bring it back. So one other thing, this was Sunny who said, it really also resounded in my head, because we always ask God, can you bless this, do this for me? But one thing that it's really stuck with me was ask God to change me. And when you think about it, you say, okay, because now you really have to be honest. Because when you sit alone in that room, as Susie said, right? So sit alone and said, okay, God, so hey, my dad said that I'm always perfect, right? Really, what is it that I can pray for to improve myself or better myself? So then you really have to be honest. Maybe I'm lacking in this. Maybe I'm lacking.
Right.
So that's
Beautiful.
Just wanted to add to that.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think it takes a lot of time, because eventually, a lot of hard work and a lot of planning, you can, I think you've got your upper level, you can connect, you do get a connection with them, and you can Hashem is part of your blood. I think then, if you have peace, you, with the other areas of your life, and it's easier to navigate those relationships if you have
They kind of saying they work in sync with each other. Like when you have one, it's like kind of leans on the other.
Gives you a sense of inner peace.
Right.
And then you feel peaceful, so it's easy to navigate your other relationships. But that may not be.
Right. Right.
Yeah, you feel
Right.
closer, more confident.
It has each one has ripple effects. There's ripple effects, and really, if we boil it down, because it's all about relationships, but really another word to sum it up is connection. which is the most basic need of a human being. From the moment you are born, right, a child that's going to thrive is going to have physical human connection or any connection. So these are also like, we're talking about being connected, right? The circles of connection. Okay. Okay. Are you ready to move on? Any last thing? Yeah.
Adding to what Marsha said, in the book Living with Amuna, there's a line that says the biggest gift a parent can give a child is the fostering relationship with God.
Wow, that's so beautiful. So it's interesting. So one of the examples, because what we did at this talk on Sunday was I gave a lot of tools you could use in building connection to yourself, to each other, and to God. And one of the tools that I gave was one of the tools that Ruchi Koval speaks about in parenting and in marriage. If you want to raise good kids, work on your parenting first, and it'll trickle down to your children. And she jokes, she says, you'll never have a child sitting in therapy say, my parents just loved each other so much. Like, that's never been said in therapy, but the opposite is always true, that a spouse will say, he just, or she just loves the kid so much, she has nothing left for me. So it depends what direction the energy is going. It has to go in a healthy direction. I think, it's hard to know where to put the energy first, but I personally think if you're not a complete vessel, it's hard to really be there for others or to really connect to God. So I think it starts inner, and Adrian, I actually quoted you on Sunday because we've been learning this work for 27 weeks together. And I remember the very first time we spoke about love. Loving your fellow as you love yourself. That's the mitzvah in the Torah, right? And Adrian, at the end of the class, we spoke all about love and all these beautiful concepts. And Adrian raised her hand and she said, well, what if you don't love yourself? Like, you weren't talking about yourself, but you put down a very important concept, because you really cannot love another or God unless you have the capacity to accept yourself. So I did quote you, and I gave a shout out to the L'chaim family over here. No, it was brilliant and it was spot on. And that's why we went into a whole other session about, let's talk about what it means to love yourself. You're doing the work. You've been doing this for how many years have you been learning? Guys, I'm telling you, if you want to learn some wisdom, some of these ladies have been, I'm humbled in their presence. They're incredible rock stars. Been learning for how many years?
2025.
I'm serious. That's what keeps them looking so young. It's the elixir, the magic elixir. It's the learning Torah. Okay, so we're going to start our topic. I just wanted to give that little bit, 5 minutes on what we spoke about on Sunday. We're starting our new topic for today for the next 35 minutes, which is a chapter in this book. We've been doing different traits, and today we're going to talk about gratitude, which is very apropos because I'm going to dedicate this class for the Yurtzeit, for the 30-day mark of Julie's father. His name was Yehuda, through name. His English name, Donald Martusov. How do you say it? Martusov. Matisov. Okay. And Yehuda, his Hebrew name, is very apropos. And this is a lesson that I know that probably everyone here has learned. The Jewish people are named Yehudim. That's a Jew. A Jew is a Yehudi or Yehudim plural, because it means the people of gratitude. So isn't that appropriate that this is the topic? Not by chance, HP, that this was the topic we were going to learn, and that is his name. Okay, that's his Hebrew name. And tonight and tomorrow is the 30-day mark, and his soul should be elevated in heaven. Okay, so we're going to talk about gratitude now. Okay, and you can't get enough of this topic, because this is the biggest game changer in our lives. We could choose to see things like the glass could be half empty or half full. So I'm going to give you a quote. This is Elisa Bulow. She says, "No amount of regret can change your past. No amount of anxiety can change your future. But any amount of gratitude can change your present." Any amount. No amount of regret can change your past. No amount of anxiety can change your future. But any amount of gratitude can change your present. Okay, and the core of Judaism is gratitude. And the reason that we're named after the tribe Judah, Yehuda, does anyone know? Because I know you guys know. Should I call upon one of you? Do you want to say? No, we even learned it on Sunday. Slavi spoke about it. Anybody want to share? Okay, I'll say it because so for these people to hear really loud, but I know you guys know this. So the tribe Judah was. You're like,
Don't go on mute.
you guys, I know that you guys know this. So there are, okay, how many tribes? How many tribes are there? There are 12 tribes. How many mothers were there? 4. Now, if you divide it equally, yeah, if you divide it, how many of the tribes should each of the women get? 3. Okay, very, very basic. Now, when Leah had her 4th son, the 4th tribe that came from her, she is overwhelmed with gratitude. And she says, Hapam odeh et Hashem. This time I'm so overflowing with gratitude, I'm going to thank God. And she names her son Yehuda from the word hoda'a, which means toda, to give thanks. And the trait of a Jew is to give gratitude. In Hebrew, we call it hakarat hatov, which is a very interesting way of saying to be grateful, because what it means, hakarat, means to recognize. Because we could all, kind of see good, see bad. So much is happening to us and at us all the time. But to recognize it takes a little bit of humility. It takes a moment of saying, wow, this is not all my doing. There's some other factors involved. And that recognition is what it's all about. It's to take a moment to recognize all the good. Okay, the good is already there, but to practice it, to put it into motion. So Passover, we sing Dayenu, right? Everyone knows Dayenu, right? It's a very famous song. And what is that all about? We're basically saying the craziest things. God, even if you took us out of Egypt and then, just left us in the wilderness, it would have been enough. Even if you took us to Mount Sinai, but didn't give us the Torah, it would have been enough. Even if this, even if that, it would have been enough. What, are we crazy? Is that really how we feel? What, you're just going to leave us stranded? That would have been enough? But the tenets of this song is to show that even if God gave us some blessing, but didn't give us all the blessing, it still would have been enough. So some examples in this book is, and this is hard. Practicing this, putting it into reality, it takes spiritual work. Crazy ones. If your house burns down, but you still have good memories from the house, you have something to be grateful for, right? Crazy. If your violin has a broken string, but you still have 3 more, you have to be grateful. If you, this is crazy. If you can't move around except in a wheelchair, but your mind is sharp as ever, you have what to be grateful for. So it's all a shift in perspective. There's always, depending on how we look at things, we could always find something good. We could. Now, a lot of strength. This is not hard work. I'll give you, God always gives me like fresh content, like daily, all the time. Oh my gosh, my life is crazy. So this morning, my husband left for the airport at 4 a.m. because he's been home for 2 weeks and he has a trip, and he even brought his scuba gear. He was really excited about his trip because he's doing a circumcision in Denver and then he's going to Hawaii. And anyway, so he's off. He's so excited with his scuba gear. I'm like, bye. I was up because I'm jet lagged. And around 5 o'clock, he calls me. He's like ready to check in, and he forgot his wallet on the dining room table.
Oh, shoot.
So he said, like, first I had to run around the house for 20 minutes looking for it. And then finally I find it, and he's like, could you scoot it over to the airport real quick? Like, could you? And I'm like, kind of like, I haven't slept. I'm a little groggy. I'm trying to get back on track. My kids are going to wake up soon. And so, of course, I'm like, for sure, let me just put on some underwear, like, I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, so I run into the car, run down the highway, go to the airport, pass it to him, he's waiting outside, and I'm like, good luck, and drive off. And he missed his flight, right? He missed his flight, and he was so sad. I mean, he was thinking he was going to get a scuba dive in, okay? A snorkeling at least, something. Could you imagine being in Hawaii and like not having 5 minutes to at least see something beautiful? All that traveling, right? So he was frustrated, and I it's very easy to say when you're not the one that's suffering, but I'm very good at doling out advice, right? So I'm like, Gadi, Gamzu Latova, this is for the best. There's some reason, like, I don't know why and I don't know what, but it's okay. you're going to get on the next flight. It's in 2 hours. You're going to have to readjust your schedule, but you have your time now. You just calm down, take a deep breath, and it's going to be good. Like, there's a reason for this. He wasn't supposed to see the fish, whatever. So, I mean, what? How did he take it? So this is something like, he'll remind me when I'm frustrated. I'm a very, very punctual person by nature. At least I used to be. We spoke by this. But I said to him, so I tried to help him. I said, Gadi, even I, who likes to show up 2 hours before, a flight, like even a domestic flight, I said, even I missed flights before. Like, I'm with you. And all this means is that you're human, and that's okay. Like, I love you. You're good. You'll readjust your schedule. It's all good. He took it well. I think he needed that. Sometimes we need to do that for each other. Just a little reminder, right? And also so the word hakarat hatov means to recognize. Like, it's not all, the whole world is not revolving around you. Okay, you forget it, you get on the next flight. Okay, someone's waiting for you in another state. Okay, they'll have to readjust. It's fine, right? You know what I said to you guys before the trip when we were all freaking out about COVID? I kept on saying, either way, it's gonna be okay. Either way, like, it's okay, right? Yeah. Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Esther, Slavi. Lee. Oh, her husband.
But it still has.
That's Sunny.
Oh,
Shut up and smell and taste.
Slavi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sunny.
Still doesn't.
Yeah, Sunny.
And she brought she said, you did it every day. So this was and I still can talk, and I still can hear, and the things that you're given, you are given to every
Right. So that's perfect.
day.
I'm gonna thank you. I love that, and I'm gonna jump ahead to talk about this. So now this is so great. Okay. So the Musar classics. So over 1,000 years ago, there was a book written on Musar. It's called Chovot Halevavot, which is like duties of the heart. And the sage, he wrote that there are 3 things that keep us blind from experiencing gratitude. So you just said it. You're like 1,000-year-old sage. Okay. So this is what it is. So the 3 things. Yeah. So he wrote that the first reason we don't feel appreciative is because we're too absorbed in worldly things and in the enjoyment of them. So he points out that physical pleasures can never be fully gratified, right? It's never enough. There's always something more. In fact, think about how many millions and billions of dollars are put into advertising to make you and all of us feel bad. They make us feel that we're lacking something. Brilliant psychology, and so much money goes into just the ads that we see that make us feel less than, that we don't have enough. Okay, so it's almost like, how do we fight against that, right? So that's number one. We can never enjoy things because we're always looking for more. Okay, we pursue them endlessly, and that takes away our gratitude. Okay, so that's one. Number 2 is, I think, what you said, that we have grown so accustomed to everything, and that our gifts, we feel that the gifts that we have, smell, taste, whatever, all these things that we take for granted, we take them so for granted that we don't even see them as gifts in our lives, right? So there's no reason to be grateful, right? Why you're grateful for something that, it's whatever, we don't think about it until, God forbid, something is taken away, God forbid, that's when we say, look what I had. I mean, this is so sad to say, but tell people that you love them that you love them? How often is it that it's too late? That at the funeral you're saying the most beautiful eulogy, but imagine if you were able to say that face to face. It's such a lesson for all of us. Every day, hug your child. Every day, tell the people that you love them. Tell your parents. As long as you have them, everyone should be blessed. Okay. Mm. Mm. Yeah. While I was in Israel, I couldn't believe it. I'm still getting over it. My husband was like, the neighbor passed away. And I mean, literally, like, more than I showed up for her with chicken soup and just to schmooze with her and help her. But really, really, honestly, more than anything, when I moved here and I was so alone, she was there for me. Like, I loved her company, and she was such a nice lady. It was so beautiful. I want to hear her. I don't even know. I am still like in shock. I knocked on their door yesterday thinking that Diana would open it, because it was her husband that was really sick, and I would support her, and I was praying for her, and I'm now looking through all my text messages, how we were just like, we were good friends. So I'm shocked. I'm just shocked. And yeah, so tell the people that you care about them, and don't take things for granted. And thank you for bringing that up. And then the third reason that we're not grateful human beings is that we tend to focus on the travails and the afflictions that we suffer in this world so much that we forget that our very being and all that we own are among the good things that are gifted to us. We forget that there's good because we're focused on everything that's going wrong. And there's plenty that goes wrong, and it's very easy to focus on that. But in that pursuit of like complaining, we're missing all the beauty. There's miracles that are literally flying over our heads. There's good things that are happening, and we are absolutely not even seeing it. So for example, let's just go back to our trip. The first day of the trip, I explained this idea of hashgacha pratit, of seeing God's hand in your life. That you guys have never heard that concept before. I mean, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Maybe you just didn't know the word for it, right? We turn it, make it really easy for people to say, wow, I had such an HP moment. It's just seeing God. Now, if we don't train ourselves to do that, so many good things are happening, but we don't know how to like notice it, or we don't know how to put it into words. So now we have a term or a way of just even thinking like, that was God. I just had a moment. That was not by chance. That there's no such thing as coincidences. So that is something that it's just such an easy muscle of seeing things through a lens that God loves you and he's here and things are happening, not by chance, but because it's happening. Beautiful things are happening to you. So those are the reasons that we forget and we're not grateful. Okay, those 3 reasons. Now let's just go back a little bit. Okay, there is, and I can't remember, I think it was Ivy. We were walking, I don't know where, Tel Aviv or something, and something happened. We were talking about something and I explained this. Do you remember? What was it? Yeah, we were walking, we were talking, and I explained this idea that we learn in the Torah. We have the 2 brothers, Jacob and Esau. Okay, Jacob was the good one. Esau was the bad one, right? He was a hunter. He was a murderer. He was not such a pious, righteous person. And Jacob was very righteous. So we have this meeting of the 2 of them. And they have this dialogue between them. They say, so how are you? I haven't seen you in 25 years, or how many years were they apart? Their whole adult life, because Jacob fled from his brother. His brother wanted to kill him, and then they come back together with all their families and all their wealth and all their everything. And they say, so how's it been for you? Right? 2 brothers meeting after a lifetime. And what they say, just a few words, it has a profound difference. Jacob says, Yesh li kol, I have everything. And Esau says, Yesh li rav, I have a lot. Now, there's one word of difference. Esau, the wicked one, is saying, I could always use more. I have a lot of wealth, a very wealthy man, right? But it wasn't enough for him. He wasn't fulfilled. He wasn't feeling gratitude. And Jacob's reaction, I have everything. And this brings us to the words of Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, when it says, who is rich? And so, right. Ezehu Ashir, who is rich, Hasameach Bechelko. He who is happy with what he has. That is gratitude. being okay, not always looking out, because it's never, it's endless. And especially with our society and the media, everyone is always prettier, skinnier, healthier, has a better husband, has a better job, has better kids. They got into a better university. It's endless. It's never going to end. And that comparison is literally going to rob you of all of your happiness. You can't be happy. You can't feel grateful if you're always wanting what the neighbor has. Yes.
Do you think that we all have to experience some type of crisis or trauma to shift our perspective into gratitude?
Well, there's two ways of getting through trauma. You could wallow for the rest of your life, or you could choose to get yourself out of it, and then you'll be changed. Right? Is that what you're saying? Meaning, not everyone that goes through crisis elevates themselves. Okay, what's your question?
Do we need to maybe be tested with trauma or a crisis for us to shift into gratitude?
Right.
Mhm.
So
Is that what it takes?
I really
for
hope
human
not.
nature?
I really, really hope not.
But I do think that perspective that when something happens that you're not, that's not great, a crisis, whatever, that you can say, Hashem is redirecting me. And it's hard to see that when you reflect back and you look on an episode, you can say, from this, I grew, or something changed, something came from there. And I think that's the impact. I think that's something about in our lives. He's trying, he's can't help us where he wants us to be. And so doing, sometimes it takes suffering, a crisis.
Okay, well, I'm gonna ask you. Your mother survived the camps, and your father, right? Both your parents. So people like that have gone through such suffering, if they have chosen to pull themselves out of their trauma and live life, they are grateful for every day, right? You saw that in your life. They live on a different level because of what they went through. They certainly have a very different outlook. They're not going to be petty. They're not going to get down on the small, minute details, because they'll say, you guys, like they'll say to their kids, which is very common. My grandparents used to say, we had nothing. We ate potato peels if we were lucky. You guys are complaining about this whole meal in front of you, right?
You have nothing, you're grateful for anything.
Right, right. So I definitely think that perspective will help. But what I like to always say and teach is, imagine if we could show God that we're grateful before God has to test us, right? Imagine if we could have unity before God creates a tragedy in the Jewish world that unifies the Jewish people, which is always what happens. A terrorist attack, and all types of Jews come together to bond and to. Why? Why do we have to wait for then? Why not do it in good times? So that's the lesson. I mean, that's the hard part, but it's very hard because it means changing your frame of mind, which when you're comfortable, you don't necessarily go to that. But I would hope that we could. And I do believe that we could. If you live with gratitude, if you work this muscle, you could probably have this without tragedy. That's what I think. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna take another route. Okay. And this is kind of, we're gonna have to use our imagination a little bit. Do you guys remember in Israel when we covered the challah on Shabbat? I think someone gave an explanation that we don't want the challah to be embarrassed because first we make the kiddush, and we don't want the challah to be embarrassed that it's getting the second blessing. So who explained that? Was that Rifki or? Oh, it was Chaya Lester. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know what you guys thought of that, right? But we're basically saying we're going to go so far as to make sure that inanimate objects are not feeling embarrassed or left out. Like that's like a far stretch. Like, okay, so now let's take gratitude. We have Moses and the 10 plagues. Some of the plagues involve water. Which ones? It's the first plague. Blood, and then frogs, dam tzfardea. Both of them, the water had to be hit in order for the plague to happen. Now, Moses doesn't do the plagues. Who does it? His brother Aaron. Why? Because Moses's life was saved when he was put in a bassinet, right, in the Teva, and put in the Nile River. So he is so grateful to the water for saving his life that he couldn't hit the water. Okay, so it's like far stretched, but he is showing gratitude to an inanimate object. Okay, do we have another example of this? So there's a story here. So the other example is the challah, but well, also, sometimes I share a little bit about how we treat dead bodies after preparing them for burial. So that's also that totally blew my mind, because a dead body doesn't have a soul. The soul leaves the body as soon as the person dies. The soul exits the body and goes to the world of souls, hovers above and keeps going up. And the body is just an empty vessel. But we treat this inanimate object, we call a dead body an inanimate object? I'm not sure. It's no longer alive. So I think that would be the right thing. It's literally, there's no life in it, right? It's a I don't know, it's a vessel, an empty vessel at that point. But the way that we treat that vessel woke me up with such dignity, how we treat it. How much more so do we need to treat people, human beings that we meet, that we talk to, that are alive, that have soul in them? How much more so do we have to say, wow, if this is how we treat a dead body, how should we treat someone that is alive, that has soul in them? So the Kotzker Rebbe, who's also a Musar giant, he gives this incredible example. When he was in his life, in his prime, and he was a teacher to thousands and thousands, when he would, let's say, replace a pair of his shoes, an old, worn out pair of shoes that have served him well, he walked with them, he's traveled with them, I don't know, a year, 2 years. In the olden days, you probably didn't throw out shoes like the way, nowadays everything is like disposable, like, oh, let's get another pair, it's 2 for 1, it wasn't like that. So he wore and he utilized this pair of shoes, and when it was time to replace them, before just throwing them out in the trash, he took them, he wrapped them in newspaper, and before throwing them out, he declared, how can I simply toss away such a fine pair of shoes that has served me so well over these past years? So he had this moment of mindfulness with an old pair of shoes, took care of it, wrapped it up, didn't just toss it away, and then threw it away. Okay, so let's give another example. If someone has an example, please share. When we were leaving Portland, we got rid of a lot of stuff because we were moving into a house that was, mostly furnished. So one of the hard things it was pretty hard for me to give away. I mean, it's just like an object, like stuff is stuff, right? It's replaceable. But when we gave away our dining room table, I had a hard time because we had used this table for, I don't know, 12 years since moving to America. I remember buying it. It was an Ethan Allen, like hand me, like it was we bought it for $500. Don't get so excited. We bought it at a used store. But the amount of people that sat at that table, that sang songs, that we had simchas and joyous occasions and holidays and everything. I like late into the night before we left, I sat at the table and I just was like having all these flashbacks. And this table held holiness. It literally, non-Jewish people were moving into our house the next day. We took off all the mezuzahs, but it was the mezuzahs, like taking them off the doors and letting that table go to a family that was going to use it well, but not in the same way that we used it. And that really was like, it was you could have gratitude to inanimate objects. How much more so do we need to show gratitude to people, right? And showing gratitude could literally change a relationship. Let's go back to the beginning thing that we started with, the 3 relationships, inner, outer, and upper. Could we insert gratitude into all 3 of them? How would we do that? Let's use any example.
Well, you're thankful that your children are healthy.
Okay, so that's like in your heart, you're thankful. How would we do it outward? Express it. or just express it in any way, right? Tell them, I'm grateful to you. I'm so glad that you're healthy. I'm so grateful, whatever it is, expressing it, right? Having gratitude in our heart, but not expressing it is like, the way that I see it is like, you buy a gift at a cute store, you wrap it up, you have a card attached, but you forget to give it, right? That doesn't feel good, right? Like, but you had such good intentions. But if it stops there and you don't actually take the next step, you haven't really done what you need to do. It needs to be passed on. Can't just stay in your heart. So it starts here, it goes out, and then how can we connect gratitude to God?
Blessings, what I was thinking about. Because so many things that.
Okay, beautiful. I love that. So using our lips to talk to God. So let's talk about blessings for a minute. So very basic. We have blessings for all type of experiences. Very simple experiences. Like, I'm about to drink a glass of water. Before I drank it, I made a little blessing, right? Shahakol nihiyah bidbaro. It's like a few words. Thank you, God, for giving me this refreshing drink. Amen. Okay. We eat a fruit. Make a blessing. Thank you, God, for the fruit of the tree. Amen. Right? So we have very physical, all the foods, all the things. There are many blessings. There's a blessing when you see at the ocean for the first time in a long time, right? There is a blessing for a rainbow.
Rainbow.
Right? Hannah, you wanted, someone was saying something? Yes?
Well, I was saying rainbow and you said it, we said
Oh, a
it.
rainbow. Okay. Yeah, we're great minds think alike, Hannah. Okay. Another blessing? No? Yeah, very powerful. And we're actually the only religion that has a blessing for after you come out of the bathroom. It's such a powerful blessing. We'll learn it. It's in your sitter. Shahachianu, I love that. Okay, here's another blessing. Okay, this one is a hard one. This one is such a hard one. There is a blessing that you say upon hearing that someone passes away. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, which is, that's the hardest one. How could you say a blessing? How could we be obliged to bless God when we just lost a loved one? And the words Baruch, blessed, Dayan, the judge, Ha'emet, of truth. Blessed are you, God. I don't understand your ways, but I'm blessing you that you are the judge. I have no idea why, but I know that you are in charge. You are the truth, the judge of truth. Now that's the hardest blessing, but there's still a blessing for good things and bad things. Judy. Just recently? Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, wow. Raffles. Okay. Yeah, question. Yeah.
I'm not saying so gratitude. Is it important to like?
Right. Well, like how would you like to receive a gift? Yeah. It's probably a love language, right? So some people like the words of affirmation, some people like the gifts, some people, there's 5 different love languages. So I think it's, but if you like it, then it's probably really important to you. Yeah. It reminds me, I have to get you the addresses, right? If that's your love language, right? You like the written word. So, and I'm like, you're gonna send snail mail? Like, I'm just like shocked. But yeah, but if that's your love language, then that's what you want to do for someone else. To the sponsors. Yeah. Yeah. So like, and I was a little shocked when you said that. I'm like, that's so nice. Like, you're gonna actually like put a stamp on it and put it in the mail. Like, whoa. Right. Okay. You got to that. Come down the genes. So, okay, so I'll tell you guys, so this is a little hard. So just talking about saying thankful, being grateful for things that we don't necessarily understand. Okay, so I shared with some of you in Israel, I was going through something hard in Israel. Do you guys remember? Okay, so the day after the trip, I met with Lori Palatic, and I spent a couple hours with her. We talked about everything under the sun and how we want to save the Jewish world. And, you know, we're just like, I felt like we needed capes. Like we were like so idealistic. But at the end of the conversation, I shared with her what I was going through, like something hard. And she totally, and basically what you're sharing, I am going through something hard. Okay. So what she did, which I love her, but at the moment, maybe I didn't love her so much. So what she said to me was, it's for the good. Find the good in it. Okay. And which was, I'm like, Lori, you're not hearing me. It's not good. It's not good. This is not good. And she said, no, it's good. So it happened to do with the situation was with someone that was very not kind to me. And I was angry and resentful and and whatever. And this is a guy that used me and my husband to get to where he got to. Okay. And so he was a non-Jewish man that came in and now he's a Jewish man. He did his conversion and he's on his feet with everything. So what Lori basically told me is, Eve, don't you see? Because of you, he is now a Jewish man. I said, Lori, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel good. You want me to take pride in that? And she kept telling me, take pride in the fact that he is where he is because of you. Now, it was actually very hard for me to accept that, but I did think about it a lot. And after her house, I walked to the Western Wall and I cried it all out. And I felt like there was something to her words that I can't fully understand it or wrap my head around it. But there was something there that even in what felt so bitter, like the bitter pill that I had to swallow, she said that there's still good in it. You don't understand it. You don't get it. There is good in it. You were that link. You helped him get to where he needs to help. And it doesn't feel good. But she said, just take pleasure in it, she said, which is crazy. But it really did help. And I think we could put this into all areas of our life, right? Yes. Yeah, no, there's a lot of good. Sometimes we need a lot of hindsight to see the good, right? Hindsight is 20/20, right? Hindsight is great when you can look back and you say, oh my gosh, it was all meant to be. But when you're still in it, you're like, why, right? But as time goes on, you heal and hindsight helps. Right. So we're gonna close in a minute, and I want to share. Thank you, Deborah. I want to share. I'll end with a story. Okay, so this is a famous story from the times of the Gemara, and it involves Elijah the prophet. It's like one of these stories that, like, you know, a lot of children grow up with. So it's the story of a man. His name was Nachum Ish Gamzu. So Gamzu is like short form. It's like an acronym for Gamzu Latova, which means this too is for the best. Nachum, the man that was like known as the guy that always saw the good in bad situations. So Nachum was kind of the ambassador for the Jewish people. And it was during a time where, let me just find the details. It was during a time where there was a lot of strife in the Jewish world. So he was sent to the court of the Caesar at the time to be an emissary for the Jewish people because there were so many heavy taxes put on the Jewish people. There was anti-Semitism. So he came forth with a treasure chest full of jewels and gold and diamonds and all types of good things to give the Caesar, so maybe he would think favorably of the Jewish people. So on his travels to the Caesar, he stays at an inn. And that night, he came with like a treasure chest. So that night when he was fast asleep and exhausted and weary from his travels, the innkeeper, actually opened the door, came into his room, emptied out the whole treasure chest, took out all the jewels, all the gold, all the valuables, and filled it up with sand and dirt. And he wakes up in the morning early. He has to get on his way. He had to get to the Caesar. So he didn't even check, but it's heavy again. And off he goes with his heavy treasure chest. He gets to the emperor. And could you imagine? What do you think happens? I mean, he's like, here, your pious Caesar, I have this from the Jewish people. And they open it up and he says, off with your head. What am I? You making a joke out of me? Am I making a mockery? Off with your head. He's waiting for his execution. And in comes Elijah the prophet. Now we know, you know, like Elijah comes to every Seder, right? My kids are always like measuring to see like if any wine was drunk from the cup of Elijah in the morning. Like sometimes I like shake the table so a little bit spills, just our own version of like Santa Claus. I don't know, but I mean, so to speak, he comes to every home, okay? But he's always there. Elijah is always present in every generation. And whether he actually comes or his presence is there, we don't really fully understand it. But Elijah comes disguised and he whispers to the Caesar that the sand, the dirt that Nachum Ish Gamzu brought has miraculous power. And if you throw it up in the air, it could turn into weapons and swords, and you could use this in fighting your enemies. So a very terrible potential ending turns into an amazing ending for the Jewish people, because it's true that, you know, God made it miraculous because God could do miracles, and Nahum was saved and the Jewish people were saved basically from a very fate end. So Gamzu Latova. This too is for the good. Whether it's good or whether we can see the good or whether we can't see the good. That's what I told my husband this morning. This too is for the best. We don't understand it, but somehow there has to be good in it. And you know, there are so many stories, you know, the stories that we hear of you know, 9/11, how someone couldn't make it on the train and then they're like, or someone tries to get on a flight and the flight doesn't ever land, or, you know, all the potential tragedies. Or every single day, I didn't want to tell you guys before the trip, but every single day in Israel, you know, before our trip leading up to it, there were many attacks. So for every attack that you guys know about, there are many attacks that were prevented that don't even make it to the news. But being that we have so much family in Israel, we always hear about that. So there were a lot of things going on, like terrorists coming in tunnels and all this craziness that were diverted, all the bad that could, just joking, Julie, she's going to Israel. Never happens. It's actually really, thank God, it's really calmed down. Yeah. You feel very safe in Israel. Yes. But yes.
Different countries where the disease is not normally found, but officials say
Your father-in-law died of. Oh, really? Wow.
Wheelchair attendant has been fired. This video is going viral.
Right. So maybe that's not the example that you would use for your. It's a very hard pill to swallow. It's really, really hard. Right. 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 Totally. Yeah.
When we're talking about that, was done. That's also this focus on work. And it's right. I all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And within about 10 years ago, her husband died very sad, leaving her with a small child. Just was then he came to her and he did for this one child. And I for a reason and left to make work this week.
Oh,
So, you know, it's
Thank you for sharing that. And sometimes there are really no answers that we can give. Something that we did share in this class many months ago was that why would we want to understand our God? Like, why would we want to fully understand, like eye to eye, our God? Like, there obviously has to be this idea that God has a bigger scope of things, and there's a reason and a master plan that we are not privy to. And actually, in Psalms, it says that in the end of days, our mouths will be filled with laughter and song, and the words that are going to come out of our mouths are, "Now I understand." That's from Shir Hamalot. Az yemales chok pinu ul shonenu rina. We are going to be overwhelmed with joy and gratitude and song, because we're gonna get it. Like, right now we don't get it. We are in darkness, but we have to have faith and hope always that there's a plan. So I'm going to end with a beautiful quote from the book of Psalms, Tehillim. Okay, and this really is a good way to close it. It says, "It is good to give thanks to God and to sing praises to God's name, to proclaim your goodness in the morning and your faithfulness at night." What does this mean? It's easy to sing God's praise when the birds are chirping and the sun is shining and everything is good. It's really easy to connect and to have this powerful experience. But in the nighttime, when it's dark, when it's gloomy, when we don't see, we don't understand, that's when our faith has to shine. So that's a beautiful song. It's a very famous song that those words are put to a song. Do you know the song? To sing God's praises during the day, but at night when it's dark, that's when your faith needs to come out. So we're going to end with that. And it was so nice to be back here learning with you guys. Oh my gosh, can I just share one more thing that I found? This is so beautiful. You had this, you heard this on your retreat, your momentum retreat. Okay, talk about shifting perspective. Did you? Okay, so this is actually really amazing. I'm going to read it to you real quick. Okay, today was the absolute worst day ever. And don't try to convince me that there's something good in every day, because when you take a closer look, this world is a pretty evil place. Even if some goodness does shine through once in a while, satisfaction and happiness don't last. And it's not true that it's all in the mind and heart, because true happiness can be attained only if one's surroundings are good. It's not true that good exists. I'm sure you can agree that the reality creates my attitude. It's all beyond my control. And you'll never in a million years hear me say that today was a very good day. Okay, this is like a 14-year-old girl, right? Okay, now shift of perspective. See, the author at the end of it, she says, now read it from bottom to top and see what I really meant to say about my day. Today was a very good day. And you'll never in a million years hear me say that it's beyond my control. My attitude creates the reality. I'm sure you can agree that it's not true that good exists only if one's surroundings are good. True happiness can be attained because it's all in the mind and heart. And it's not true that satisfaction and happiness don't last. Some goodness does shine through once in a while, even if this world is a pretty evil place. Because when you take a closer look, there's something good in every day. And don't try to convince me that today was the absolute worst day ever. It's the same words. Isn't that crazy? 14-year-old girl wrote that. Unbelievable. Sure. Sure. Bye guys. Hi Angie. Oh gosh, I'm gonna take this over. I think everyone wants to say hi. Guys, look who's on.
Hi, guys.
Hi. We're all the sickies.
Oh, no, I'm all better.
I am too, actually. I'm better.
I mean, I think I still have to mask, but I'm all better. Miss you guys. That was so great, Eve.
That was awesome.
Hi, Ellen.
Awesome.
We got to figure out a way to be able to hear what other people are saying that aren't.
What are you trying to do?
We can't hear. We can only hear Eve, basically.
I'll tell them. Bye, you guys.
But that's something that just has to be figured out
I
somehow.
don't think I'm gonna make it tomorrow. But maybe,
Bye, everybody.
Hi. Miss you all. Love you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
5 million times. Like I got a message I know. I appreciate your. All right. Yes. Hopefully next week. Maybe I don't want to. Oh my gosh. I know. Oh, you said that. Yes, absolutely. Apparently, Brad Rosen has COVID. There was no max on very nice. Well, okay, but they are correct. That does what so, do that COVID. Right now. Oh, okay. I was yeah. So nice that you came. Tuesday, you know, I don't know to this. I know that. Yeah. So throwing everything today. So they went up. Oh, Daddy's all. Wait, they have classes that much and then how's it here? They somebody's gone there every week. Where's it? I think. Oh no, it's tonight. There's a using space. We have a white show at Rutgers. Doesn't that identify? When I'm not told about this somewhere else. Joe was trying to realize all the well, I think it's bad. I think this river is river free. Okay. Yes, yes. I'm not upset how the new means. Yes, whatever. They were not at Brad's house. She's not seen Brad. She was at my house. So she needs to. You need to not let yourself get sucked in with her emotions. Get sucked in with what she's saying. We have to learn to actually learn about mommy and I. Yeah. Mommy would have had that. She would have I would talk to her at night. They would That's the same person. Sympathetic to her, support her, but I don't it's just and take out her negative emotions. You need to work on it because you can't, I mean, it's way easier said than done, but it's a skill. But trying to be good. I'm like, right, right, so much higher. Right. I'm not nervous, but I feel like January mask. I hope so. I don't. I just January mask. I hope so. We just went through the masks. You know these. Yeah, they know this. But. Love you. Bye. Good to see you here, man. Love you. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. And my Oh. Yeah. Okay. When they were younger, and David's daughter, Talia, like figured out, like, well, yes, Talia when we're there, so. Well, I'll see you soon. Bye, ladies. I'll see you. Right. A little bit of walk. We can even. Yeah. Bye. Real quickly, right?
I'm saving the product. And everything. Not say you need oxygen like a concentrate. Battling. There's a lot. The nurse said, or I have. Here. So I talked to
This morning.